Ross Mandell, welcome to the Man of War podcast, brother.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you being on. And we were cracking up here before the podcast. Great conversation. And you're a firecracker, man. You bring the energy, so I love that. Okay?
Thank you. You know, it's so great being a guest rather than being a host. I just get to show up and be me, right?
Hell, that's what it's about today. Now, look, we were talking about Wall Street, about your career, about what you've done. So before we even get started, I would love for you to just go out there and introduce yourself. Give a little glimpse for people that may not know you.
Okay, Ross Mandell, sort of a regular guy. Grew up on Long Island. Good kid, good student, good athlete, football team, wrestling team. But I'm a real worker with books, and I like to read. And I ranked number 6 out of 624 in my class, Lawrence High School. I graduated in 1975. And 1973, I'm in 10th grade, beginning of the year, on the football team, on the wrestling team. And my dad passes away out of nowhere at Rosh Hashanah dinner, which is like the Jewish New Year. Out of dinner, he gets sick. He goes to the hospital. I never see him again. I'm 16 years old. I got a younger brother, 13 years old. I got a mom who's 38 years old. I find out we were living the American dream. Mm-hmm. Everything was mortgaged, borrowed, and leased. And I wake up the next day, my dad's dead, and I find out we might have to sell the house. I can't go to, I was going to go to like Columbia or Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League school. My grades and my scores were good enough. And I'm told that basically everything we have is either mortgaged, borrowed, or leased. Yeah. And I get angry. I got really angry at God, at the world, red hot rage. I went crazy. I punched the wall, put my fist through a wall, and that began a run into drugs and alcohol where I really just went nuts. I used women, I used drugs, I used cars, I used money. I was like a rough kid. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say I was violent, but I liked to fight. Mm-hmm. And physical guy, all these kind of things. And I just medicated myself. That's all I could say. I was full of rage, and it became anxiety. And somehow I got through school. They let me graduate because I was such a good kid up until that point. And then after my father's death, I stopped going to school. All my friends were different. A classic story, right? But
sure,
when you're living it, you don't know. Hanging out in the back hall, I'm smoking weed every day. I mean, I smoked weed every day for 17 straight years, from the time I was 16 till I was 33 when I eventually do get sober. And I just didn't give a fuck, bro. I was that kind of guy. And I was very athletic, and I was very fit because I played ball, and I wrestled, and my whole life was about physical fitness and getting good grades. And now all I wanted to do was act out, and I was good at that. So I graduated. I ended up going to SUNY at Albany because I got a full scholarship to go to college. I got academic scholarships, and I got wrestling scholarships. And I don't think I ever went to class. Maybe I went to 3 or 4 classes. When I transferred after my freshman year at Albany, I had a total of 6 credits. You know, you sign up for 30. And they gave me 6 credits. I don't remember the details. I get to Maryland, and I make, one of the things about me is I'm a guy's guy. Yep. And you know, I know how to move, I guess, and guys dig me. And I always had girlfriends, you know, hot girls, that kind of a thing. But you know, I was the guy that would selling weed. I sold Quaaludes back in those days.
What?
We had Quaaludes in those days, you know, real Quaaludes.
Holy crap.
And I
haven't heard that in so long.
I had a big habit, right? I had a bad habit. I wanted to party all the time, and it's expensive. Mm-hmm. And I didn't come from money. We had no money. My family, my mother had to go to work. Friends and family kicked in and helped out. Grandparents, uncles. But the truth is, we were my family was struggling, and I just went crazy. And basically, I left home at 17, went off to school, and never came back. That's really my story. I learned how to live off sort of the land, as we say. Somehow I hooked up with these ambitious, aggressive guys at the University of Maryland, where I transferred to. And we basically cheated our way through school. I should be careful what I say because I endowed the University of Maryland in 2004. I gave them $500,000, and I set up the Leaders for Tomorrow program. Three worthy young students that don't have money get to go to the Graduate School of Business at University of Maryland forever.
Wow.
On Ross Mandell.
Wow.
And it's one of the most, it's one of the things I'm proudest of in my story. And they still send me letters inviting me. And these are people that, young kids that, like me, had an issue, had no money, and wanted to go to a great business school.
Sure.
And so myself, in conjunction with a guy named Thomas McMillan, who was an NBA basketball player, Rhodes Scholar, congressman, graduate of University of Maryland, we became good friends through Wall Street, through business. And so I gave this money, and we set up this scholarship program alongside the university. So now I'm in college. We get out of school. What do guys like me do? We move to New York City, and we sell stuff. So I was selling ladies' handbags. My uncle had a company where my father used to be a partner many years ago. And, I don't know a thing about ladies' handbags. And I don't particularly like the business. It seemed very silly to me almost. But I'm a good sales guy. And my uncle gave me my first good sales training. And some of the things he taught me to this day have helped elevate me. Obviously, with the Wall Street training, which was like that's like you become a ninja. But he taught me certain things about making one-on-one presentations, how to sell somebody when it might seem daunting. And they basically just sent me all around the country with suitcases full of samples, and I went to buyers and pitched them to do business. And I quickly learned it's not about what you're selling; it's about who you are. People will do business with other people, not necessarily with the best products or the best ideas. And we know that from being on Wall Street. You call up guys, what did you know about the stock market? You represent yourself as a financial professional. And, you find someone that will buy you. And that's really what it comes down to in selling. Sure. And I think in all interpersonal relationships, it has to do, you want to be in business with me, Rafa. And I have to persuade you. Forget about the product. Forget about, the mission. Forget about the service. Do you want to do business with me? And if so, let's make that happen. Yeah. I'm a good guy to be in business with. And if I can persuade you and convince you of that, then I'll win that day. And to me, it's about getting up and it's about winning. It's never about the money. It's never about the things. If that's your focus, you'll probably never have it. You'll never have money. You might make it, but you'll never keep it.
I agree. Yep.
You might have things, and they'll just go right through your hands. It has to be about being great and winning the day, winning at something. And I like winning, and I like people, and so I got to a point, through my training that I was able to do business with people that I wanted to do business with. I just became good at it through all this sales training. And so I get a call one day from my friend. I'm selling ladies' handbags. I'm in Manhattan. I'm making $150,000 a year now. I'm 23 years old. I'm making $3,000 a week. I have a $4,000 American Express card. I could spend $1,000. I could spend $4,000 a month because I was traveling all over the country. And you have to rent cars and hotels, etc. And this is before the internet. This is before Google. This is before cell phones. They don't know what I was doing. I get on a plane. As long as I came back with the orders, they didn't care what I was spending. And I'm selling millions of dollars worth of handbags, but I'm banging out that credit card. I'm going to nightclubs in pretty much every city in this country. I made friends all over the place, and I'm meeting women everywhere. I'm doing all kinds of crazy things. But the whole time I'm drinking and I'm drugging. And it was very glamorous at first because I had money and I'm doing business and I'm young. When you're young, you feel like you're bulletproof.
Yeah.
And when you're young and you're listening to this, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Sure.
But when you get older, you look back at yourself and you're like, holy cow, boy, you don't even realize what a stud you are. You know what I mean? And I get a call from my friend, and he says to me, I just got accepted into Merrill Lynch. I said, I'm going to be a stockbroker. I said, what does that mean? He goes, I don't really know, but these guys are making a lot of money. We used to go to clubs, and we used to sneak in, and we used to talk our way in and bribe our way in, and we used to sell drugs and all these different things. But we'd see these guys, these good-looking guys, pull up in the best cars, and the most gorgeous women would come out of these cars, and they would be ushered in through the ropes.
Sure.
There might be 500 people standing outside on the street trying to get into Studio 54 or Xenon or Magique.
Sure.
And they're ushered right in. And by the time we got in, they're sitting at the best table with these hot women. They got VIP, and they're drinking the most expensive champagne. And, we didn't have Google. We didn't have cell phones. I would just go up to guys, and I'd be like, excuse me, I hope I'm not, interrupting you. I don't mean to be a pain in the neck, but who are you? I saw you get out of this Lamborghini and you were ushered right in. You got the best table. I mean, you're with the most beautiful woman in the club. I mean, what woman doesn't like to hear that? And men, especially successful men, love to talk about themselves.
Oh, you're on that, yeah.
So I'm like, who are you? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
He goes, bro, I work for Goldman Sachs. I'm a stock trader. I'm in arbitrage. I do deals. I'm in M&A. Wall Street. I kept hearing Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street. The best. These guys were always, were everywhere, the best restaurants. And, the truth is I didn't give a shit, to be honest. I've had a lot of time now to sit back and understand my story. I was just about being in the moment, being in the scene. I wanted to be at the best scene. I wanted to be at the best clubs. I wanted to be with the hottest girls.
Sure.
So you had to have nice clothes. You got to be able to have some cash. It's expensive if you want to be a player.
Sure.
I don't care if you're in bumfuck, Arkansas.
Agreed.
If you want to be the big shot, you got to play the part. It costs money.
Yep.
And so I was hustling and selling. And so, about 6 months later, a year later, I'm with my friend. We're out and about. And he picks up a very expensive meal. He goes, yeah, I'm having a really good month. I said, what does that mean? He goes, I made $60,000 this month. I mean, get the fuck out of here. $60,000 in a month? He goes, yeah. He goes, I made $400 last year. I'll make about $800 this year. I said, what the fuck? What do you do? What do you do? You rob banks? He goes, sort of. I said, he goes, I go to work, the office about 8 o'clock in the morning. We have a meeting. I drink coffee all day. I'm on the phone, and then I leave like at 6 or 7. And you're making that kind of money, and you're just talking on the phone. Now, my friend was he was a savvy guy. He was aggressive. He was, like a doer. But he wasn't like, I didn't look at him and say, wow, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a monkey see, monkey kind of do. If you can do it, and I can watch you doing it and learn from you,
sure,
then I can do it. Listen, it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery, but I guess that works that way too. That's how you learn, and that's how you get exposed to something. And I had that kind of confidence in myself. And this is just selling on the telephone. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, would he put spells on people? I didn't understand it, and I learned. Then I started asking questions. And I started asking everybody. And that's one of the things that people know about me. I ask a lot of questions. And when I go out to dinner with my ex-wife and my kids, even to this day, they're like, Dad, please don't get into a conversation. Because I talk to everybody. I'm very interested in what the waitress does, where she's from, what her name is. I really love people and the things that we all go through because I just find to be, this is my life. This is not a dress rehearsal. I don't get to come back and do it again. It's not like Mulligan in golf. It's my life.
Agree, yeah, man.
So I want to experience life. I teach people. I do a mastermind program where I coach young men and women, either personally or in a group, and it's life is not a spectator sport. Get the fuck in the game. Get off the couch. Get out of the stands. Get in the game. Do not be afraid. Fear governs 98% of everybody. And during periods of my life, I was ensconced in fear. And the more drugs and the more alcohol, I was coming to the end of a run. My denial was I could always make more money than you. I'd make it to work 2 days a week. I made it to work 8 days for the whole month, but I made $100,000. How much you make? and you go in every day. You must have a problem, not me. That was my answer. I was very abrasive, and because if you attacked my lifestyle, my disease, I suffered from the disease of addiction and alcoholism. My disease got its put up its dukes, like it was ready to fight, and at some point in 1990, Saddam Hussein and Iraq invade Kuwait, take over the oil fields. Price of oil goes crazy. The stock markets get crushed. We were in a recession. It was George Bush the one, and the markets just got tanked. And I just said, "That's it. What do I do?" I couldn't go to work. I just stayed home. I got really whacked to the point where I said, "I need help." And I made a bunch of phone calls and spoke to guys, and turns out it was no secret. You know, all these people that use drugs and drink too much, they think that
under
nobody
the radar,
really knows, right? The whole world is praying for them. Please get well.
Yeah.
We don't, As soon as I reached out for help and asked for help, I got it. I went to a 28-day program in New Canaan, Connecticut, got sober. And I began, I like to say that was Ross 2.0. I now have to learn. I never sold a stock sober, never made a cold call, never made any phone calls clean, never was with a woman without some sort of drug or chemical in me, whether it was alcohol or a joint or a pill. Remember, because I started when I was 16. I had been with some women when I was young, but I'm a 33-year-old man now. And I went from having $1,500 when I started on Wall Street in 1983 to over $30 million in 1987. After the crash, I was down to like $2.8 million personal net worth. In the next 3 years, I went through that money like chopped liver. I just stopped going to work. In 1988, I didn't even go to work, and just went through I spent $1 million that year on cocaine and crack. That's how bad I was. By 1990, I get clean, and now I look at my life. I'll never forget, I'm sitting at my table. I have an apartment on East 63rd Street, 2nd Avenue, and I haven't paid rent in like 5 months. I'm being evicted. And I owe him about $1 million. I stopped counting at $1 million. I was sitting there with my pads, and I had all my bills, and because I just went away for 28 days. And I'm like, holy fuck. But I did something during that time that really changed my life, and I hope somebody can listen to this. I was raised to be a man. My parents, one time my brother did something, and we got in trouble, and right away I said it was my brother, and they punished me for ratting my brother out, and that was a lesson I learned. And I learned that you never make excuses, you never cry. Man do manly things. They talk to me about being stoic, not that word, but that whole principle, where men take responsibility. It doesn't matter how you feel. You're tired, you're hurt, you're sore. It doesn't matter. You're a man. Men show up. Men have certain responsibilities. I'm very old school that way. And so when I met my wife eventually, it was like she was going to be a stay-at-home mom. She's going to take care of the family in the house. I'm going to take care of business. I'm going to give her money. She's going to take care of everything. And she did. I found someone that had similar visions that I did. But I was a man, and here I am now in New York City. I'm clean for the first time in my adult life. I'm sensitive to the noises and stuff. It took me a year to get used to all the noises because I was so high all the time. I didn't know. If you ever spent a minute in New York City, it's like loud all day, all night. I stood up at a meeting and said, "Hi, my name is Ross. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict, and I just got sober. I got clean at the Silver Hill facility in New Canaan, Connecticut. And I don't know anybody in this city that doesn't do drugs, that doesn't drink, that's not a limo driver, a hooker, a drug dealer, etc. So if anybody here, because I was in a meeting, will give me their phone number, I really need help." I'll never forget, it killed me to do that. I felt naked. I'm in a room full of 60 strangers, people I never saw before, admitting that I'm a failure, that I'm a loser, that I'm weak. That's how I looked at it. But I asked for help. And it was a big lesson for me because sometimes you have to just drop the facade and get real. And it's funny today in the world that we're in right now, Rafa, about podcasting and social media, helping people. It's about being authentic. I think that's the word that people say is the most important thing. I want authentic. I'm not interested in this packaged shit that they're selling on CBS and ABC and NBC.
Yep.
When Trump went out and said, I want to talk to the country, he goes on Joe Rogan's podcast, gets 30 million downloads in 12 hours.
Yep.
And there's no agenda, there's no bullshit editing, there's no corporate messaging, no commercials. I mean, you're talking about an authentic message. And one of the things I love about you is I had never heard of Man of War. I'd never heard of you. I was shocked to find out it's 6 minutes from my house.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy. And Nelson said, he's a Cuban guy. He's a serious guy. He's a great podcast, big following. So I went on your Instagram, and I played some of your stuff, and I was like, this is a real guy. Who the hell is this guy? You're authentic, bro.
I try to be, I'm straightforward.
You tell it like
Straight
it is.
shooter,
No, but
yeah.
not everybody is as overt as you. Some people are a little bit still about being canceled
Sure.
and the messaging and all that shit.
Sure.
And I say, fuck that. I didn't go through my life to worry about what everybody else thinks. You don't like me? Don't listen to me. Do not listen. Change the channel. Stay away from Ross Mandell. But if you want to hear a real message about my life and the way I feel, I'm going to share it with you. And I'll always get my following like I did in brokerage and sales and all those different things. And so, I got clean. I asked for help. And I learned something very, very big during this process. I said, if you're looking for trouble, if you're looking for drugs, alcohol, you're looking for quick shit, it's out there. You could go get it. It's out there. And in fact, today with the internet and social media and Hinge,
Sure.
Tinder, all the different things, everything is available to you. In the dark web, I learned about that when I was in prison. As everything's available. But if you're looking for good, there's so much good in the world. There's so many good people that are willing to give of themselves and help. But you have to ask. It says in the New Testament, seek and you shall find. There's no truer statement than that. It's all out there. This is God's world I live in. Everything and anything that you want is available. So Ross 2.0 started, clean and sober, got my act together, went back into business. Within 90 days, I was the biggest producer at my firm from zero. By the end of the year, I get recruited to another firm. I take a check for like $300,000. I become the biggest producer at that firm. I'm about to be made a partner. When they go out, they close. I'm like, what the fuck? Next thing you know, a guy named David Black started a new firm. He was the biggest life science guy in the world. He was the youngest member of the Forbes 400 at the time, 1994. On his 30th birthday, Merck gave him a check for $300 million. Made the Forbes 400. Decided he was a brilliant at venture capital. He was brilliant at the construct of capital structures, creating companies from nothing, and printing money. And he taught me. He was a mentor of mine. And by the middle of 1994, I was the biggest producer out of 1,500 guys. And we had Nobel Prize winners walking around, Lasker Award winners, which is the Nobel Prize of Chemistry. Some of the most clever investment bankers and successful guys from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, J.P. Morgan, all come into D. Bleck and Company. We had offices in Boston and New York and London and Boca. And I became the top gun there. And made millions. Learned the art of what they call capital formation. And for many, many years now, if you look me up and you Google me and you see me in the Wall Street Journal, you see me in Forbes, you see me in Fortune, you see me in Business Week, CNBC, all the different, media outlets, they say Ross Mandell is an expert in capital formation. And I used to laugh at them. I said, what the fuck does that mean? What is capital formation? I don't know what that means. I sit in my office with all my guys and just laugh. I mean, the front page of the Wall Street Journal. So I'm in prison for many years, and there's not much to do in prison but read, think, etc. And I got to thinking, and the joke was on me because I really am. They knew more about me than I knew about me. I never really took a minute out to reflect. Mm-hmm. I'm an expert in capital formation. I can build companies, structures around ideas, products or services. And I teach that now. I have a course called The Wealth Formula. Mm-hmm. It's an online curriculum. I'm in partnership with Bradley from Lightspeed VT in Nevada, mm-hmm. Las Vegas, Nevada. And I offer a 14-chapter course on how to take any idea, any product or service, and turn it into a legitimate business. And we're very successful at teaching just regular people. And we're about to come out with a new course about the stock market, introduction to the stock market. I find that most people have known nothing about it. Most people, and the kids today, they're selling options on futures or some tertiary crypto, and they're going to lose all their money soon. And we want to teach people the proper way to look at the stock markets and to understand the markets. I had a 67-year-old man come to me the other day and say, how do I buy stock? He got a tip, and it was a good tip probably. And he has no idea. I said, you have to open an account. I said, well, what does that mean? I said, it's like opening a bank account, but you can do it online or you can go into a place. Mm-hmm. And I realized that there are so many people out there that just don't really understand, and they're afraid to ask. I mean, he literally closed the door and asked me privately. And so this is how we start the introduction to the stock market, is how to open a brokerage account, who to go to, what questions to ask, what documents to sign, yes. what they mean, and all these good things. We're not doing a Discord or Telegram channel, which teaching people nonsense about some secondary or tertiary cryptocurrency to just separate people from their money. I mean, I could probably make a fortune doing that kind of thing, but that's not what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to show people the right way to do things. It's a longer path to take, but it's honorable. Yep. It's good. So you asked for a little synopsis of who I am.
Hey man, look, that's I'm here just listening. I forgot I'm on a podcast here. First of all, yeah, I love the way that you articulate yourself. Very energetic, well-spoken, very charismatic.
Thank you.
So I give you that. My hat goes off to you. Now, what I want to do is I want to kind of reverse engineer this a little bit. I want to go back in time. And, you mentioned to me that you started in the 80s. Okay, that's really when you started coming up in the financial markets. And
right.
So comparing the way life is now to the way life was in the 80s, in my opinion, it's very, very different.
Okay.
However, what do you feel during that time when you were going out there and building yourself and doing, I know that you were going through ebbs and flows, but every step of the way was an experience to define you, who you are today. Because I believe, and I think you would agree with me also, that if you didn't go through all of this, you would not be who you are today.
100%.
It's who you are. I mean, so
it's all part of us.
Yes.
Right.
So in the 80s, sales. In the 80s, going out there, you mentioned that you were selling handbags, and I mean, you were a driven man. What I'm seeing now in the year 2025, that drive for young men, for the most part, sure, there's 2-3% of them that still are hungry and have that
right.
type of ambition.
Right.
But coming up in the 80s, I can say without a doubt that there was a lot more hunger, more drive, more going out there and just doing it, taking action than there is today. And we are 40 years apart.
True.
What do you think happened during that time that, when you were going out there selling handbags and being the top producer and just working your ass off, putting in the time, putting in the effort? You mentioned something that I live by. It doesn't matter how you feel when you get up in the morning.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care what happened. you must get up and go out there and do the work. You know, people say, well, Rafa, sometimes you get up in the morning, you got ambition, you have a mission. I'm doing God's work. Yes, I feel like that. But I tell you, not every morning I get up hungry. Sometimes I don't want to get the fuck out of bed. You know, so the fact that you had that drive through that time, and what do you think essentially that the gap here over the last 40 years, what has been lost in our society?
It's a great question. It's really, really great. I'm going to break it down if it's okay. So I chose to go into the stock market, right, to go into learning how to be a great salesman, a financial professional, and all these different things. I wanted to make a lot of money, okay? And I went into this business, and I didn't really understand much about business. I didn't understand even much about myself. I wasn't very analytical. I have appetites, and I'm driven by my appetites, okay? And I learned later in life that my drug of choice is just more. I have plenty of money, want more money. I've been with a girl, I want another one. I bought a house, I had an apartment, I wanted more. I wanted a house here, there. I have 4 houses. I mean, running around place to place was ridiculous. But I'll explain to you from the business perspective, because now I've had a life to look back on and to reflect, to analyze, break down. In the early 80s, 1983, when I went down to Wall Street, August of 83, at E.F. Hutton, cold calling was a new thing. It just began in the very late end of 70s. It had just permeated Wall Street in the early 80s. So they say 1982, when you look at charts and you talk to analysts that have been historians of the markets, the big bull market began in 1982. When I say the big bull market, Dow Jones was on its way to 1,000. Today, it's at 42,000 and change, and it's down 1,000 points in the last week. So it was a time in the industry where Wall Street was meeting Main Street for the very first time. Prior to cold calling, Wall Street was really the purview of the rich, the wealthy, and the corporate institutional world. It wasn't for regular guys like us. You couldn't just go get a job because there were no customers. Mm-hmm. People would call up the broker. Like today, we call up our doctor, we call up our lawyer, we call up our accountant. They're not calling us. You make an appointment, and if you lived anywhere in this country, you would make the drive to the big city, typically going to the ivory tower where your financier, your broker, your advisor was waiting for you, and he would set up a portfolio and this and that. In the late 70s, a bunch of young men at Lehman Brothers, they called them the original Lehman 7, 55 Water Street, very ambitious guys, said, we're tired of sitting around waiting for people to come in here. It's bullshit. They got on the phone with the FTC and learned that there was nothing that would preclude them legally from selling securities over the telephone. What? And that began the beginning of this massive program of 100,000 young brokers over the next 10 years during the 80s to the 90s of just unleashed on the world, right? Right. Getting to call rather than sit around and wait. Soliciting is the word. Telemarketing. And I was one of those guys in the 1983. It was early in the game. 3 of the original Lehman 7 were my mentors, to me. Actually trained me. Of the original Lehman 7, I knew all 7. I had a chance to meet all of them. Marty Shafroff's like 90 years old. He's still the biggest broker in the country in his 90s. You know, I mean, I can name them. And I was trained by some of the best sales guys that actually invented this cold calling principles. And
the culture, yeah.
Right. Yes. I'm actually mentioned in the Lehman book, like 3 or 4 times. They used my sort of rebuttals that have been memorialized in this document, very famous document. And so it was the beginning of an industry. You know, what I learned in my pursuit of capital over the years is that pretty much every industry is the same. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it's football, baseball. It doesn't matter if it's steel or coal, oil. It doesn't matter if it's Hollywood and movies and entertainment. in the beginning of an industry, you have a bunch of guys like us, entrepreneurial types, that say, I want to do this. I want to try this. Let me give it a shot. And we go into this industry and we try and figure shit out. And there's very few rules. There's virtually no regulation because it's a brand new industry. And we're out there trying to find our way, and sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss, but there are guys that all of a sudden figure out a process or a way, a structure to start making money. And once enough guys figure it out, and there's an industry that the big boys are watching always, the institutions are always watching, government's always watching, and they see an industry that has the potential or is actually kicking off millions and millions of dollars, at some point the big boys step in. When the big boys step in, they don't come in early. They want you, me, him, Nelson to evolve this industry, to prove that it really has staying power, it really has value. And they're studying. You know, anywhere there's a dollar to be made, people are studying. And what they do is they start to come in and they start a place. They're paying lots of money to get in initially. It's worth it. It's an investment. And they get their stake. They put their foot in. And once they're in, they start to build barriers around it. You and I could put together the 50 best football players in the world. We could have all the money in the world. And we could say we're going to challenge the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. And the NFL is going to say, go fuck yourself. Because the NFL controls that game now. You understand? You can't just put together a team. Can't just buy a team. You have to be admitted into this highly regulated industry.
Sure.
Hollywood, go try and, you have SAG, you have unions. There's a million barriers thrown around every industry that shows that it's lucrative and that it has staying power and it can yield millions. Lots of fruit for a lot of time. Doesn't matter what it is. So every industry goes through this sort of evolution. And you can pick any industry in the world and you look at it and you'll be able to observe the evolution. It's very loosely regulated or unregulated in the beginning, and then by the time the big boys put their arms around it, good luck. They control everything now. They have associations, organizations, unions. I mean, you name it. So the securities industry became highly regulated. We used to have T plus 14. I could call you up on the phone. You would do a trade, and you had 14 days to get me the money. And then if you couldn't get the money together, I could get you another 7 days, 2 extensions. Today, it's T plus 0.
Right.
If you don't have the money in the account, you can't do a trade.
Yep.
They want cash up. Yep. That's because the big boys control all the capital. Okay? It has to go from their bank to your brokerage account. It's got to stay in the game. You can't even take it out. And that's what they wanted. They control the capital. They control the game. But when I started, it was very loosely regulated. It wasn't even a NASDAQ. We used to do stocks with $2 on the inside, legally, reported, okay, because it was over the counter. I want you to know that's one reason why I'm in the business that we're in now. You and I are podcasting right now. Unless you do some crazy editing or whatever, people are going to hear this. There's no FCC. We're not regulated. I would never go into a regulated industry ever again, or a regulated business. I'm Ross Mandell. I'm speaking for me now. But I understand business, and I love the idea of social media. It's unregulated. Now, the truth is, Meta, Twitter, LinkedIn, these big companies basically are regulating this business. But people I sell education online. I don't have to deal with any regulator. Yeah. I could charge any money I want. It doesn't matter if I charge $300 or $10,000. I do a mastermind program. You get to have 10 hours with Ross Mandell. Your time. We tape every session. You get control of the tapes. Nobody tells me what to charge. So I am in an unregulated arena, and what we're seeing today in social media, it reminds me of Wall Street. E-commerce reminds me a lot of what we went through in the 80s.
Interesting.
So the times have changed. The game has changed, but it's still the same. in some sense. I agree with you wholeheartedly about some of the things we discussed before the cameras were rolling and during now. America, men have become softer, and that's been done intentionally by the powers that be. Our government is trying to take our powers as men away. Look at all these democratic states with gun control. New York, Illinois, California. I hate to say it, our founding fathers were so smart. The British tried to take their guns away. There would be no America if we would have let them. It's a Second Amendment, right behind freedom of speech, freedom of religion, is the right to bear arms and carry arms. And they attack it. People in charge are trying to take it away because that's what governments do. You got a bunch of people in Washington that are trying to take control of our lives, what we can eat, what we can say, where we can go, how we go. I mean, it's fucking terrible. Government was meant to be small, to work for the people, to serve the people.
Yes.
That was the whole idea.
Yes.
And now they want to tax everything. They want to be in your bedroom. They want to be they want to take part of your life and control your life. And that's why I would never be in a regulated business. So I chose this business specifically because I love that aspect. You'll be shocked when you start looking at the different industries, how few industries today are unregulated. We have about 3 or 4 years until the regulation starts pouring in. That's my opinion. I tell Nelson, I say, look, we gotta score now, because let me just tell you, it's going to be very different. And then the big boys are going to throw up the gates, throw up the barriers, and it's going to cost you to be in the game. And you can't do this, and you can't do that. And if you have a curriculum, and if it's less than X, you can't charge Y. I mean, there's going to be a lot of nonsense. But I believe that the powers that be, because of the advent, cellular technology, the ability to communicate for every human being in this country, to have handheld devices that connect us all. You would think that's a great thing. And I think people find it inhibiting. I find it liberating. I gave a speech to a bunch of young guys down in Miami about the power of the phone. Someone handed me a phone once and taught me how to sell. I made $300 million over the years. That's power. And yet these guys get on the phone and they're like, hey, like they're fucking sleeping. There's no respect. They don't understand the power that's in their hand, the ability to communicate morning, noon, and night, 24. We got to shut our phones off during this because my phone would be ringing off the hook for 2 hours. It doesn't stop. And social media, the ability to reach potentially 8 billion people. Do you know that? You understand the power in that? How freaking powerful that is? I used to dial the phone 300 times a day. To get 100 people a day that I would answer the phone or tell me to fuck off. Out of that 100, 90 people would tell me, hang up the phone, get lost, lose my number, fuck you, you piece of, whatever. But I would get 10 people a day that would be gracious enough to talk with me and say, all right, I'll accept your introductory package, send me some mail, let me know you're real, and I'll consider doing business. Out of 300 dials, 10 people. Yep. Today, we can run ads for $20 a day, and we could reach 100 million people. What?
Yep.
What? Come on. I mean, that's huge. Now, you have this connectivity between the internet and cellular, right? You can reach so many people. But if the people in charge are using that communicative ability to sort of control the population, you see what's happening. You see softer men. You see participation trophies. Yeah. Well, you're going to get a trophy anyway, even if you suck and you didn't practice and you have no skill. We're going to give you a trophy anyway. The fuck is that? Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you're a man and you tell me that you identify as a woman and you take a few hormones, you could win the gold fucking medal in the Olympics and beat the shit out of some little women. What the? You see that desire to soften a population so you can control a population?
Yes.
We give you the freedom to chop your dick off and put some tits on.
Yep.
But we're taking away your ability to freely do this. You have to take the injections, the vaccinations we want. When we tell you have to stay in the house, we're going to lock you down. You chop your dick off. You're free to do that. In fact, your kids can do it, and you don't even have to call us. And we'll make it illegal for the teachers to say anything. But you got to shut your restaurant down when we tell you. Could you fucking imagine? You understand that this is the control. So they give you this illusion to act out your sexual fantasies. You're free to do that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make laws to make that okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to take away your basic freedoms so we can control you, manipulate you, take the money, take the power, own the real estate, etc. And that's what I see has happened, just a softening of the fabric of men. Because who are the ones that are going to resist the change? Who's going to make the revolution? It's going to be the men.
Well, that's very powerful, man. There's a lot to unpack there.
Ugh.
And it's a big deal. The fact is that I believe that society, not as a whole, but there is a good portion of society that does want to weaken men. And they're adamant about it because that's what they don't want, that uprising, that defense system. They want weak men so they could walk over them and get their mission, their global mission, whatever it may be, accomplished. And, we just saw it recently in this, when President Trump is addressing the nation, and this house that they're in, to speak like a kindergartner here, okay, has heritage, tradition, respect in that house. And no matter what aisle you stand, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, some of the things were just awful. I looked at these individuals. We're talking about a kid with brain surgery, another wife there with her husband murdered. Are you kidding me? Like, you can't even give respect to the office.
Terrible. It was terrible. It was the optics was so bad. And I felt pain in my heart when these women, their daughters, were raped and murdered by illegals that were caught and let go. Yeah. And these Democrats are acting. She's Elizabeth Warren sitting on her phone.
It's bad.
They won't show the respect. Yeah. They made a farce out of it.
But that's a very good point. Respect. And that is something that is missing.
I agree.
Now. And I saw it in law enforcement, where it was a common thing when the big time with the George Floyd thing, where they hated cops. I mean, I can go into stories. They,
Can't even imagine.
They would walk up to I was a field training officer, my latter years. They would walk up to our police truck, our patrol car, and spit on our patrol car. So I mean, I
imagine 40 years ago, they would have got crushed.
When I came up in law enforcement, that didn't happen.
Right.
But it's that respect factor is absolutely gone in our society overall, and I think it starts at home. And we can that's a different discussion for a different time. But and I think that gap in the middle, exactly what you're saying. I mean, there is. That respect factor is not there. That willingness, the resiliency, the drive, the ambition is just not there. They're not hungry enough. Now, I agree with you that cell phones, and this is a great tool here. I agree with you that cell phones can open a new empire for you, if used in the right manner. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of these younger people, what they do is just, do this all day long, and they're not really productive with anything.
I get it.
Okay. But for individuals like you, myself, businessmen, you can't beat that. Like you said, running, $20, $50 a day on an ad back in the 80s, to get that type of exposure would cost you millions of dollars. So, yeah, I mean, that I think we're living in a different world right now, but we're also living in a different world, not necessarily because times have changed so much, but people have changed, right? Like the essence of hard work, the essence of that warrior, that mentality, it's no longer there. Now, you mentioned the Lehman Brothers, right? You know, when I came up, you know, I still have it around here. It's a book like this full of rebuttals.
The Lehman book, yeah.
Full of rebuttals.
It's a Bible, a Wall Street Bible.
Are you kidding me? I mean, I still use some of those rebuttals. I teach my guys.
Of course.
And that's people look down on that sometimes, saying, "Well, that's scripted." Let me say this. There are two types of salesmen. One that's a very soft salesman that, for the most part, will be okay with the way he sells. He'll kind of, he'll make the quota every month, maybe go a little bit above it, from time to time. And then there's the hungry, the wolf hunter, right? The guy that's going to go out there and study his work. He's going to perfect his craft. And I think that at the time of the Lehman Brothers, of when Lehman and Goldman Sachs, and when they were literally bringing this military of soldiers, because that's what they were, not all of them good, but a lot of them amazing. I met some amazing people on Wall Street. That drive and that ambition that they had, that hunger to, sure, whatever it may be. Look, I get it. Some of it was all bullshit because I spent money in bullshit also. Okay, there was a good part of my life that I spent money on bullshit. But in the end, it goes like this. The learning lessons, and I don't know if you can agree with me here, but the learning lessons that we had on Wall Street, they defined a lot of who I am, even my manhood today, because you mentioned earlier to me, you're like, yeah, it was like the freaking military, the way they talk to you.
Yep.
Can you imagine today going, running a company and you're talking to people like that? You'll get sued left and right.
My kids, I have two daughters, okay, and they are constantly criticizing me. Daddy, you can't say that. Dad, you can't talk to people like that. That doesn't work anymore. Daddy, you got to Daddy, before we go out, before they introduce me to anybody, and whenever we go out, I get a coaching lesson about what I can say, what I can't say, how I can say, what words I can use. I'm so I called the guy a Chinese guy. I got hammered. Daddy, they're Asian, Daddy. I mean, people are very hypersensitive, right? Yeah. You're right. People will sue. You get canceled. There's so much bullshit and nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm not a coward. But, because I love my daughters, I respect them. We use that word respect is so important. Yeah. Like we saw the Democrats just disrespect the president, disrespect the institution of Congress, just disrespect. They came up with this plan that they're just not going to do anything, and it was stupid because it's blanket. You're in one of the most venerable institutions in the history of the world, and you're like a fucking idiot sitting there, okay? So because I love my daughters and I respect them, I watch my tongue when I'm with them. Yeah. But I'm very happy to be with the man of war right now because that's who I identify with. I am a man of war. I'm one of those guys they had to put away because I'm a disruptor.
Awesome.
And I was changing the game on Wall Street. And I did things that they said could never be done. Yeah. And I did them well. And I showed the world there's another way. You don't have to just pay the toll and go down to Lower Manhattan and pay $100 billion in trading profits and fees and all that nonsense. I showed them a way to do it better and cheaper, and they punished me for it. That's why I got charged.
Give me one of the most important lessons that you learned when you were away.
Oh, there were just so many. I just have to say, one of the things that became crystallized to me, it's something I lived by my whole life, but it became crystallized. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're lazy, if you're sloppy, if you half-ass something, that's how you're going to do everything. There's no. It's bullshit if you think.
Can you repeat that for me again? And can you say it louder? Because
How-
that's what I want to hear.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
That's right.
I remember telling my daughters, listen, you don't want to play kickball, don't play kickball. You don't want to play pickleball, don't play pickleball. You don't want to try out for cheerleading, don't do it. Because you don't do things that you don't want to do. But if you're going to do something, you better do it. You better pursue greatness. Yes. I don't care if you do 2 things in your life. I don't give a shit. But be great. Yes. Have an appetite for being great.
Yes.
You can't do a little of this, a little of that, because that's how you're going to end up living your whole life. How you do anything is how you do everything. And that became crystal clear when I was in prison. I saw the way guys and people conducted themselves. And I also got to witness certain people, the way they cleaned their cell, the way they cuffed their pants, the way they did certain things. And it became very clear to me, when you look at a man, you can tell how he conducts himself. If he's sloppy, he's going to be sloppy with everything. It's just the way it is. And, I urge guys to do, people that are associated with me today, like just people men that are close to me. I hate to single him out, but he's right here, Nelson. There are things that he's got to understand about the way you do things. The way you do anything turns out how you do everything. You don't see it when you're young, but when you go back and you look at life, that's one of the benefits of being older. A lot of when I was a young guy, all these older guys would talk shit, and I'd be like, "Oh, fuck yourself." I mean, you're just old. Well, there's one thing that age does guarantee. I have more years experience than you do. That's all I can tell you. It's the only thing I can guarantee. Yeah. I'll be 68 in 2 weeks. And I've done a lot of stuff. I'm a guy that's 68 with 168,000 miles on me. But I learned a lot of stuff, and I witnessed a lot of stuff. And again, life to me is not a spectator sport. I jump in the game. And I played in a lot of games, and I can tell you that if you're going to do something, you should try and be great at it. You've got to try to be great, or don't do it. Commit, put your feet in, jump in the pool. I did a podcast with a guy named Mick Hunt, lovely guy. Mick Unplugged is the name of his podcast. He's in a group, an Urban One group with like Damon John, the guy from Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, yeah.
And, we were talking about different things about, so many people don't do things because they spend all their time analyzing and trying to figure it out, and it has to be perfect. And, things are never going to be perfect. So if you want to podcast, pick up the goddamn microphone and start podcasting. Do it on your phone. Do it from your kitchen. Experience it. See what you think. But if you're going to do it, try and be great. You have to, the things that we have to try and pursue greatness. And what's funny, as a society, we really appreciate that. I mean, the Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, you're talking about Michael Phelps, you're talking about people that have pursued greatness. And I did this podcast, and Mick posted this clip recently, and it's about just jump in the pool. You can't keep putting your toe in the water or trying to figure it out. Jump in. And if you're in that game, you do your best. You have to do your best. You'll have to do your best. You have to pursue greatness. And then you'll decide if you want to stick with it, if there's a future in it, if it's for you. But don't sit around the edge of the pool wondering what it's like because you're just waiting for the sun to be at a certain angle, or you're waiting for your wife to bring you suntan sunscreen.
No doubt.
Or it's too cold right now. Let the pool heat up. Bro, just dive in and see. You don't have to have this beautiful man of war room, which is like perfect in so many different respects. I mean, just get in there, baby.
And, I say this, and this is going back to one of my rebuttals. There are 3 types of men in this world. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and then those who wonder what the fuck happened, right? The world goes around, and it's going to go at its speed, right? Whatever the world speed, right? And you're either going to stay with it, be ahead of it, or it's going to leave you behind. By the time you know it, you're 90 years old sitting in your rocking chair wondering, what did you do with your life?
Exactly right.
And I love to see a guy like yourself, hungry. You're in your late 60s. You're out there. You're in great shape. You're still a disruptor and a game changer, man. That is,
Thank you.
That's admirable, and I love to see that. And I love to see men who have that fire, because guess what? I know a lot of guys your age that literally look like they're 80 years old, walking around with a cane, hunched back, and that's my life, just waiting to die.
It's true.
You are living your life, and that is very admirable. And I would love to have you on again on this podcast and talk about more things, but men need to see your good reflection of how men should be, and men who still have that fire in their guts, because in our day now, not many men are out there with that fire. Yes, you mentioned there's a lot of good people in this world. I agree. There's a lot of good people, okay? But there's not a lot of guys out there that have that internal fire. There's not. I would say less than 1%.
I agree.
Who are hungry, who are disruptors and game changers, just not many. So to be able to surround yourself with guys at that level, that's first of all, for me, is an honor, and also just to be able to learn and absorb and be in that same frequency. It's very powerful. A couple more questions before we end this, okay? Look, your mindset, the way you carry yourself, how you speak, I think there's a lot of talk in this day and age that a man doesn't need to open the doors for a lady. That a man, that part of chivalry, the part of actually being a man, right? It's kind of lost. Young men don't even understand that. They'll kind of walk into their car, forget about opening the doors for their daughters or their ladies, and they do their own thing, kind of separated in a way where it's like, leave the woman behind, let her walk in before you in a restaurant. I don't know. Me, I'm old school, right? And I get a sense that you seem like you're a man who is very much on his game when it comes to, just being courteous and like you said earlier, that, you're very, your daughters, were speaking to you, and you needed to kind of, coaching you, and you needed to go down that.
Like they taught me like an idiot. Yeah. Like I'm a dad,
so,
you don't know dad.
So do you think that chivalry is something that a man should live by?
I do. And I'm very traditional in some ways. I believe that a man should be a man and a woman should be a woman. Even though I have these independent daughters that they can be very argumentative. They get their own money. They don't want to be dependent on a man. I get that. I understand. I'm very ambitious. I don't want to be independent. Listen,
Sure.
I was in prison. I was in prison with guys that can't wait to go out so they can find some rich woman.
Right.
And they feed off when they have 4 or 5 baby mamas, because those baby mamas work, raise the kids, and send them money.
Right.
I'm like, maybe I'm stupid. I mean, what a deal that is. But I can't help it. I was raised in a family. Like I said, I had a really nice, normal, what I call healthy childhood. I was a good kid. And, I was told that you treat a woman like a queen, right? A king doesn't, he has a harem maybe, but he has a queen. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a bimbo. He doesn't have a booty call. Mm-hmm. King has a queen. And but I also learned in life that you don't become the king by chasing the queen. You become the king by chasing the throne. A lot of men make that mistake, I think. Women are kryptonite. I know that I've been in relationships with my wife that it was crippling. The women, they'd give me a hard time. They would get in my head, this, that, the other thing. I married to Stephanie because she used to say to me, go to fucking work. I got the house. I got this. I got the kids.
Yes.
You go make some money, go do a deal. I'd be in Europe. She said, don't come home. make that deal.
Yes.
And she was supportive. So I believe that in a relationship, the most important thing are common goals. Because I don't care. I learned this about relationships during the course of my life. It doesn't matter how hot it is and how much passion you have and love, even all of it. Doesn't matter in the beginning. Over the course of time, you're going to grow apart at times. But if you grow apart and you have common goals, at least you're drifting in the same direction. So there's hope to come back together. Common goals are the most important thing. And I'm very chivalrous in my own way. I'm not overly, I'm not a poet. I don't write love letters and all these different kind of things,
Me either.
I'll go to CVS and I'll buy a card and I'll put $500 in it, on a Visa card. I know guys that write love songs and they strum guitars and they sing and all these different things, but then they lie and cheat. So I like to think I'm a romantic at heart. I've loved a lot of women during the course of my life, but I was only married once, only engaged once. I have 2 daughters with my now ex-wife. We're currently divorced. I'm single for the first time in like 35 years.
Wow.
And I'm living alone, and I'm loving it. I don't have anybody tell me what to do and how loud to play the TV. Well, why am I listening to my phone and I'm listening to the TV? I can't hear all that noise. I don't have to deal with all. You know what I mean? It's.
That's good.
I have a little PTSD. I was in prison for 9 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's a long time, bro.
Yeah.
And I walked out of a 10,000. I had 4 houses, but the one I walked out of a 10,000 square foot house in West Boca. With 8 bathrooms. And I walked into a cell, 66 square feet, with 2 big, fit black dudes and a toilet right in the middle of the goddamn cell. And they closed the door half the day, and I'm living in there. Yeah. It was a shock. And but I got through it. I survived. I learned a lot of things about myself and about the world. Things I wish I didn't know so much, right? Sometimes you're forced into a situation. God puts us in situations to test us, to give us experiences, to see what we're going to get out of it, etc. I'm a very, very big believer in God. People ask me, you're Ross Mandell, do you really believe in God? Do you really believe? I said, I don't believe. I know God. I actually know God.
That's powerful.
And what's worse is God knows me. He really knows me from the inside out. There's no hiding. And
did the time that you served, did it make you closer to God? Did you have more time in your hands to literally reflect, self-reflect?
Yes. See, sometimes it's just you and God.
Yeah.
When you're locked in a cell during COVID, in solitary for 6 straight weeks, where they hand you food through the door, where you get out 5 minutes a day, 1 day a week to take a shower, do an email, or make a phone call. 5 minutes a week. Otherwise, you're locked in a fucking room. And I didn't even have a cellie. I was by myself for almost 7 weeks, which I happen to enjoy, believe it or not, the solace. I don't need another guy there, farting and snoring and, telling me what he thinks about life. I've had some great cellies, don't get me wrong. But that was my solitary experience. It was crazy. But yes, I got a chance to, let's just say, work on my relationship with God, the God of my understanding. And, I believe that sometimes God will put you through something in life, so you're forced to spend time with Him because and there's no one else. They say if you want to find God, go to a hospital, go to the ICU in your local hospital, go to the cancer ward, go to prison or jail. You'll find God. You'll find the most godless creatures on their knees, praying.
Yeah.
And I believe just like in life, I ask God for big things. They say, well, you can't pray for things. I'm like, who? I mean, they say, who's they? Mm-hmm. I asked God for a Rolls Royce recently. Is that wrong? I mean, I'm just playing, but I mean that sincerely. I pray for big things.
Yeah.
I don't want little things. I'm a wealthy kid, and I want big things, and I know that I live in God's world today, and this is God's kingdom, and God's kingdom is actually right inside us, each and every one of us. I was on a podcast yesterday with Brian DeVoli from Las Vegas, real estate guy. He just had Grant Cardone on and all these different things, and he was trying to convert me to Jesus Christ, to Catholicism. And he asked me about, and I said, I've studied theology. I've read all the scriptures. I read them all because when I got sober in 1990, I'd go to these meetings and guys would raise their hands and they would share these elaborate, incredible shares. I'm like, this guy's a genius. Yeah. And they'd be quoting, the Bible. And I'd be like, wow, I didn't know that was in the Bible. And like this guy would talk about what God says here and what Christ said here and Luke and John. And I was like, maybe I'm jaded because of my experience in life, in business. I don't believe much of anything. So I go back to the source. So I sat up for a year and I just read the New Testament, the Old Testament. I read the Quran word for word.
Wow.
I studied Hindi. I studied Taoism. I mean, for real, where I can converse about these things intelligently because I read from the source material. You didn't speak to Jesus Christ personally. This is the book you're quoting.
Right,
and it
right.
didn't say quite what you say. Well, it referenced that. That's not what it said. So let me explain. Now, I don't like to get into these arguments, but this guy was trying to convert me because he was just baptized. He became Catholic. He's married to a Mormon. And we were going back and forth, and I was the host of the podcast. And he was trying to engage me. I'm the host. I'm like, bro, I feel like, it was inappropriate. But, I dealt with it. And I can communicate intelligently and engage in that kind of a thing. But I spend a lot of time in prison working on my relationship with God. And I want to tell you, there were moments when he gifted me true serenity. He they talk about the grace of God. I was always like, what does that mean? Like, what does grace mean to you? What does the grace of God mean?
It's just so powerful.
But it's a crazy word, right?
Yeah. It's hard to really pinpoint what it means.
What is the grace of God? Well, I can tell you, I can't really put it into words. Yeah. But God blessed me with his grace a few times. That's why I say I know God. It's something that comes over you. That's like a blanket of love and serenity and peace. I mean, I'm in the most horrible place on planet Earth, next to death row. I'm locked in a room during COVID, and God blessed me with his grace. I still can't tell you what the word means. It's exactly. So, yes, I feel like when we go through severe trauma, things of that nature, sometimes it's just you and God.
Yeah.
And he forces your hand.
Beautiful. What is the most powerful thing that you've ever done in your life outside of maybe getting married and having kids? Let's put those out. Personally, what do you think is the most powerful thing that you've done in your life?
Wow, I've done some things, to be very candid with you, one time I was manning a suicide hotline. I used to do this service, so for 10 years on and off, I would answer I would get the phone in Boca, and I would man a suicide hotline. And this guy would call from time to time. And I would talk to him. It's a suicide hotline. People want to, they all threaten to kill themselves, etc. And they're usually very disturbed.
Sure.
And this particular guy was in a trailer park somewhere off 441 way west, like up by close to the Everglades, and it's like a trailer park. And he was smoking crack, and he was at wit's end. And he wanted to kill himself. And they wouldn't let him leave because apparently he owed money. I never got the full details. And I was trying to help him. It's very serious. And I found out where he was. And I got in the car. Now I'm in a two-seater Mercedes SL55 AMG Sport model, the top down. and I end up driving. I keep him on the phone, and I drive from my house to this trailer park, and it was a legit trailer park. It was really a rough spot.
Yeah.
And he's literally in some trailer, and he's been up for like 3 days. He's like 115 pounds, 120 pounds, and he's with some hostile people, and everybody's fucked up. And I pull up in this car. Now, at the time I was training, I was doing a lot of fighting. I trained at MMA for a lot of years. I was working out. I was taking a lot of steroids and hormones and all these different things. I was a beast. But I was worried about this kid. His name was Michael.
Sure.
And I ended up going into this trailer park, and they had security, these, junkies basically. And I pushed my way in, and I identified this guy, and I literally threw him over my shoulder because they wouldn't let him leave. And they were threatening me with knives and clubs and all these different things. And I threw him over my shoulder, and I put him into my Mercedes. And I strapped him in real quick because it was getting hostile, and they were throwing things. And I drove away.
Wow.
So it's a crazy story, right? So he, I ended up being like a sponsor to him, in the program.
Sure.
AA took him to meetings, got him clean. He gained like 20 pounds his first month.
Wow.
But here's the interesting thing: when I end up getting indicted and charged and convicted, they have a sentencing. And the lawyers ask you, say, listen, it will be very helpful. The judge is deciding what to do with you. He could give you life. I was facing literally 65 years, and I'm in my mid-50s. It's a death sentence. And so, they say, you got to ask people to write letters for you.
Yes.
And by this time, I'm so beaten down, I can't even ask anybody to do anything. I've now spent $3.5 million. I realized my lawyer sold me out. It was all bad. I was set up. My trial was a sham. The whole process was a sham. They put a forfeiture order of $50 million. They took money from me, $5 million bail. And my wife at the time, she called up everybody, and she got 200 letters in. And this particular guy wrote his story. He's now clean and sober. He lives on Long Island. He owns a restaurant. He's happily married.
Wow.
And he was going to kill himself, and he tells the story about how I broke into this trailer park with guys. Now there's guns, and it got a little bit more spectacular. It might have been. I don't know. I was just very determined to help this kid.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about powerful, I'll never forget. It was pretty powerful because, I'll never forget, I was driving away, and I realized that I could have got shot. I could have got hurt bad. You know what I mean? This kid they weren't letting this guy go. He owed like $40.
Yeah.
But in a trailer park, that could be like $4,000.
Sure.
And so I saved this guy, Michael, and he wrote this letter to the judge. It was very, very powerful.
Wow.
And telling the whole story how I saved his life.
Damn, that is powerful. Powerful. That's at another level, and when you save someone's life and they go back and you see them now living, owning a restaurant. I mean, it's I had a lot of different stories throughout my law enforcement career, and there's no better feeling inside when you feel like you were there for that person in their worst time possible, and now because you were there, hey, they're growing.
You've been into drug dens like this, right? So it's really skeevy and it's scary.
As a matter of fact, where you're talking about, that was a very common area, Mission Bay area.
Correct, right there,
west with
100%.
18th Street and that area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
West by Sandalfoot.
Sandalfoot,
there, back there, but west. Oh my God, bro! It was. I'm there with a Rolex on. I'm in a convertible Mercedes. I pull up.
Crazy. That's not a good place to be with that.
They're like 5-0. He's 5-0. Look at him. He's 5-0.
Yeah.
I was going to say I'm undercover, but I don't know what I was like. I wasn't really thinking. I think that's what makes powerful stuff.
Yeah.
When you do stuff and you react. Yeah. I'll tell you also. You said powerful. I said, when my two daughters were born.
Sure.
I realized immediately prior to the birth, I was in the room both times with my wife, and when that kid is coming out, there's an expression: 5 fingers and 5 toes. 10 fingers, 10 toes. You pray. And I thought that was such bullshit. Mm-hmm. Stop it. You want a son, you want an athlete, or you want a good-looking kid. And I was like, holy shit. I realized at that minute the direction of my life might go a certain way. If your kid's born with a deformity or
Yes.
an issue mentally, autistic, today they say 1 in 30s, have these problems from these shots. It hit me like seconds before the kid was to be born. My wife was dilated already, and they said the child's coming, and I was like, oh shit.
Damn.
To me, that was very powerful.
Damn.
When you see that head pop out, and you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
What do I know about this kind of
healthy
thing?
kids is a blessing.
A blessing.
Yeah,
It's a moment in time where things are so out of your control. You realize there is a God. I mean, it's like, what the hell? How does this happen?
Yes, 100%. Ross, man, it has been an honor to have you on. Before we end this, where can people reach you? Where can they follow you? Give me a little bit of a glimpse in there.
Thank you so much, Rafa. It's Ross Mandell. I'm not very creative. I love this man of war. I so love it. When you walk into his studio, he's got Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is my favorite, just so you know.
Oh, really?
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, he was a big mentor of mine growing up.
I am be like water, my friend.
That's right.
I am such a huge fan. I've seen all his movies over and over again.
Great.
And I follow him on all the social media things still, even though he's been dead for like 40 years. Yeah. But Ross Mandell, 2 S's and 2 L's. I'm on Instagram, Ross Mandell. On YouTube, it's The Real Ross Mandell. I have a great podcast, great social media. Facebook, Ross Mandell, 2 S's, 2 L's. You can go to rossmandell.com. I own the URL. I have a website that talks about current events, what's happened with me. I wrote a book called Rock Solid, which I wrote in 2013, never published, even though I got a big deal. And it's now for sale. We're selling the digital version only.
Okay.
It's on my site. And also, there's a link on every one of my social media sites to click on, which will take you through a funnel into Lightspeed. And you can buy my course, The Wealth Formula. It's on sale right now for $297. It's a 14-chapter course. It's literally worth $200,000. We give you $5,000 worth of free documents that you need to open up a corporation, an LLC, to keep a book.
Amazing.
It's really it's a brilliant course that I engineered it's a culmination of my life's work and understanding of business and
Great.
How to do these things. And I just want to say what a privilege it was, Rafa, to be here today. I'm very grateful.
Awesome. We'll put all this information in the show notes, links back to everything that we just spoke about. So please, if you're listening to this, support our guests. We take pride and we're very specific on the people that we bring on here. And Ross, you had a very powerful story. Thank you for being on, and may God bless you, man.
Thank you. I just ask one thing from
Sure.
you.
Yes.
My studio is right up the block.
I'll be there whenever you want.
So
me,
I'm
man.
going to have Stephanie book you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you,
so
brother.
Grateful.
Appreciate it.